Welcome to Fractional Frequency, our take on talent, people trends, and the reality of building up businesses in an economy that keeps rewriting the rules. I'm Amy Crook, founder of Stratavis.
And I'm Erin Totis, Managing Director of Talent Delivery, which basically means I live in the universe of finding the right people to make an impact for our clients fast.
Around here, we talk about the real side of HR and talent, what works, what absolutely doesn't, and how to build teams that can carry a business, not drag it down.
We'll break down trends, share the behind the scenes of scaling a consultancy from zero, and probably overshare a little because that's where the good lessons live.
So whether you're building, hiring, leading, or just trying to keep your company profitable, you're in the right place.
This is Fractional Frequency. Let's get to it. Hello, Amy.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. Good morning and happy daylight savings time.
Oh, I know. Losing that 1 hour on International Women's Day feels right. Feels totally right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it does. But I am so excited that today we're joined by Megan Mirkes. Megan is the General Operations Manager of Kidz Kabaret, a highly successful children's theater company and nonprofit organization based in Naperville, Illinois, outside of Chicago. Their unique non-audition model creates opportunities for all students to share in the spotlight, learn, grow, and enjoy the arts. And the organization was launched 25 years ago and has now scaled to run 100 shows per year with up to 20 casts at a time. If your head is spinning already at the thought of bringing those logistics to life, just wait. We have much more in store to learn about leadership, mission, boundaries, and scaling an organization that has positively impacted thousands of children's lives. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Welcome. What an intro. That's so impressive.
And let's get into it. So Megan, I want to start by talking a little bit about Kidz Kabaret's origin and some of your growth story. So for listeners who may not be familiar, what is Kidz Kabaret and what makes it different from other theater companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kidz Kabaret is a non-audition children's theater, which I'm not sure that we are the only one, but what does make us unique is every child is center stage, which means every child will get a highlighted role with solos and lines to really have their opportunity to be center stage. So given the musical, we decide, are there 15 roles that are intricate to the story? And then from there, any kid that would like to participate will register and is able then to perform on stage, center stage.
That's amazing. I think about some of the audition theaters that exist for kids and how much pressure that must be for, like a 10-year-old, for example, to go and feel like they're under a microscope and are they good enough? And to shed that part of it is just an amazing thing that you do for students. So really excited to learn more about this. And Kidz Kabaret is 25 years old, bootstrapped, launched in your backyard. At what point did it shift from kind of a community project to a more serious growth organization?
Yeah, so Kidz Kabaret, as you said, started in the backyard. And from there, we grew very baby steps to different rehearsal spaces, performance venues. So for a while, we were performing in a church area. We've performed in a hotel setting, so renting like the reception room of a hotel to perform. So really where we started to make our mark would be probably with the purchase and renting of center stage theater and creation of that. So we knew going into Kidz Kabaret, if we wanted to continue to grow, that we would need to create our own performance space. And so in 2010, we took an industrial building and completely revamped it to now be the home of Kidz Kabaret performances. And with that comes now rental opportunities for outside groups to also use this performance venue. So I would say probably about 2010 is really when things started to shift to more of a business setting.
Can only imagine the opportunities that opened, having your own space and not having to hop from one venue to the next. What scaling milestones would you say you're most proud of recently, say in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so a little bit out of the 2 to 3 range, but COVID, as we all know, hit businesses hard, and especially performance groups, groups that are meeting 100% in person. So one milestone that I'm pretty proud of is being able to stay open during COVID. I mean, we were only closed for probably like 2 months. By that summer of 2020, we were up offering camps, knowing that, we have our main clientele at home itching to get out of their houses and come do something different. So I think that definitely spoke miles of our staff and as well as our customers, and the fact that people were reaching out, going, when are you guys going to open? My kids are dying to go there. So that would be probably something that staying open and then being able to build back up those numbers from COVID, I think is a huge milestone for Kidz Kabaret.
Yeah, my goodness. I can only imagine like the stack of safety measures and protocol that you would have had to spin up just, overnight almost to make that come to life and make it happen. That's incredible. And we've been talking a little bit about some of the scale, and I think that a lot of people would maybe not think business case study initially when they think about children's theater, but your growth story, certainly nods to that. And so I want to get into some of the behind the scenes from a business perspective. Would you share with us, Megan, what are the core revenue streams that you have at Kidz Kabaret, and how have they evolved over time?
Yeah, so there is a registration fee that we do put in place. So every child that registers has to pay a registration fee. We do as many discounts for our families as possible. So, we do like a 10% discount for families. We have a membership. So our loyal customers that are coming and participating in all 4 seasons a year, we offer a price break to them. Our main revenue stream would be registration. But from there are other entities like ticket sales. We do fundraisers. We have merchandise that we sell, like show posters and show T-shirts. We also then, with that performance venue, will have rentals come in too as well. So people are able to rent that facility, and with that have rental fees too as well. So many different streams of revenue coming in at different parts of the year too as well. So it's something that I think is hard to maintain sometimes, is if you're registering for something on a seasonal basis, registrations at the beginning of that. So then in those 3 months, how are you sustaining income? So that's where things like then ticket sales come in, or we have an outside rental group that's using our space every Sunday. So keeping revenue coming in consistently throughout the months.
And how that's an interesting problem to solve, in that it's sort of an inconsistent stream coming in. How do you think, as you think kind of long term, how do you think about sustainability of the business versus growth of the business?
Yeah, so so I think what we've proven over the last, 25 years is kids want to do this. Kids want to be a part of Kidz Kabaret. So sustaining the business is keeping listening to our young customers of what they want to do. But the business itself has proven that if we continue to host a show every 3 months, the kids will continue to register. So sustaining that and continuing to stay focused on what is important in terms of staffing and revenue going out, and not exceeding those means. So I guess staying humble in a way and staying towards the goals of where we started and continuing these baby steps, and not going out of our means is what has been able to have us be sustainable over these years.
think that's a great lesson and something that a lot of organizations in the corporate community are sort of grappling with right now too, as there's more and more macroeconomic pressure on organizations than maybe they've experienced in the past. Those that don't already hold that value of humility and being really thoughtful with their expenditures and investments are probably struggling a little bit right now, and most certainly thinking about that more than they might have in the past. And so, really excited that you brought that up, and I want to dig into it a little bit more. One thing, before we dive into, I want to talk about, leadership and how you have, how you've led that organization in recent years. But before we dig into that, tell me a little bit about success. How do you measure success of the organization beyond registrations and ticket sales? What are some of the signals that you're always looking for and listening for?
Yeah, so, that's a good one. So, measuring success. So besides the numbers, besides registration, besides, I guess, those facts that you see coming in, a funny one of measuring success, it's a small scale, but many of our young employees at Kidz Kabaret are stem from volunteering. So usually, the kid will start the program in elementary school, let's say, and now they're in junior high and they might take on more of an assistant director volunteer position where they do that for 3 years. Now it's time to get a job. And these kids that have spent, 12 years with us, of pretty much their entire childhood with us, are now wanting to continue to grow with us in a professional way. So now I started here as a child actor, and then I volunteered and took more on leadership positions. And now I want to go work in their cafe and be there. So I guess a way to measure success without the numbers is your staff and your people of going, it's a nice compliment that you'd want to continue working with us or volunteering with us or being with us. But the duration of having your volunteers or staff with you, I think, is a nice measure of success of, we're around for the journey because we created it and this is something that it's our job to sustain. But when other people that don't have the relationship with the business want to be around for the ride too, I think that that's a great compliment and measure of success.
I agree completely. It's so nice to take somebody through that journey and give them that consistency of experience. I think it teaches them something about like commitment and loyalty and what you get out of something, but very much depends on what you put in. And I think that just sets, people up really well for their, longer term career goals when they've had that kind of foundational experience of having a consistent place that they're able to add value. I think I agree. I think it's a great measure that you are able to keep people around. I think, even in the corporate world, it's, your retention metrics are important because you want to know that people are staying, that they feel good about the environment that they're in. And, it's very rare that you get somebody these days that would stay for over a decade. So, yeah, I think that's a really solid measure.
Over a decade and through various seasons of their lives too,
so many of our staff are kids that started as Kidz Kabaret kids and now even in like adulthood, they went away to college. Now they've graduated college, whether they've gotten married and are starting a family or are looking for their next step in their career. We have kids that have been loyal to us for 20, 10, 15 years that different stages of their life, they're always circling back to Kidz Kabaret, to Fair Lady Productions, to continue to add jobs to their resume, or just need a place to continue their, career path. And that I do think is a huge compliment of just, or, just even as I'm sure all small business owners know, you're in a bind, all of our staff are sick and aren't able to come today. How many people are willing to jump in and help you out? I think just as like a huge measure of success, like that loyalty of people sticking around, and you understand like why you want to, but when people that aren't as connected to it do, it's a huge compliment.
And a testament to your leadership, I'm sure, because people want to help you, want to help what you're doing. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And you're responsible for leading across many stakeholder groups. So I think about employees, volunteers, board members, parents, children, the community at large. How do you balance these various audiences, and what do you feel like they need from you as a leader most of the time?
Yeah, so I think just like employees, I think it's very maybe clear to people, you hired an employee to do this job, and now I must set them up with the training and the skills that they'll need to do this job. And I think people have a hard time with the leadership when it comes to volunteers. I think people, they're not paying these people to be here to help. But when you work in such a community that is driven by volunteers, I'm not afraid to put those volunteers to work, to give them the same guidelines and leadership that I'm going to give my employees. And I've seen in different situations where I think some people hold back because, this person's volunteering, but people are volunteering because they want to make a difference, and they just need to have those guidelines in place, or leadership, leading by example of what needs to get done. So I think, although it is different, I think that is something that is important to focus on when you have a different scale of people. So whether that is employees, volunteers, parents, your customers, which are, sometimes younger children, it's listening to those people and keeping focusing on people's wants and needs regardless of where their stake is in your business. So a volunteer is just as important as an employee, especially when it comes to our nonprofit business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make an amazing point about listening. So much of that is as a leader is using your ears and not always being the one to speak, so you know what they need from you. And you started to talk about the various needs that that the stakeholders have, and that you're always sort of pouring your heart and soul into the work. The work you do is so passion driven, and you've got this small team supporting it, and it can probably feel overwhelming at times, I would think. How do you prevent burnout for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, so I think it's prioritizing. So when you have so many different hats, so many different entities of a business, you have to prioritize what needs to get done and what's important first. So the list of things that have to get done is never ending, but what has to get done today and what needs to be on the top of the list of things to do. So understanding that if I can just prioritize and delegate, using the people around me to assist with the load of stuff, focusing on, this is stuff that I 100% need to handle, but this would be a great skill for this person to learn. So let me train them and get them in that. So using the people around me definitely help prevent the burnout, in the sense of not being afraid to delegate those jobs, especially when the load is heavier than usual. So not feeling like I need to be the only person that takes this on, recognizing my volunteers and staff and their skills, and having them assist with that, I think, is huge. I think it's also important too that staff is scheduled to take a break. So we might have, a really hefty work week, but all of us need a couple hours to recharge and reset, because none of us are going to be on our A game if we're not rested or taking care of ourselves outside of the job too as well. So I think when we're at work, we're there to work and we buckle down and get the jobs done. But when it's time to be off the clock, I think it's important to set that precedent of we're off the clock today and let's all take a break. So those, I guess, are ways that I try to stay on top of not feeling burnt out and not feeling like overwhelmed with the job. It's a large job, but because I believe in our team and staff and their skills, I know I'm not alone doing any of it. And I always have a team that I can reach out to.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think there's a couple lessons in there for like small business owners and founders. Number one, know when to delegate. It's definitely something that I struggle with. And could do a better job of. And number two, like when you're off, like setting those boundaries, so that you do actually get some clear headspace away from what you're trying to achieve at work, because then you come back refreshed, new perspectives, different ideas, more patience maybe, and then you can get through the next task. So definitely good lessons in there for people that are working in small business.
Yeah, and I want to follow up. Megan, you talked a little bit about setting boundaries and really respecting your time, at work and your time away. What is the most critical boundary that you've put in place as a leader? And if you're open to share, what led you to commit to it?
Yeah. Yeah, so the boundaries probably put in place. I think that's that big one. You're off the clock, you're off the clock. So it's so easy, especially when you're in charge of all the employees, the text messages that if you're not at the job site and you've hired others to work the job for you. So, say we have a rental in on the weekend. I've hired staff to accommodate that rental. But with that rental will always come questions or text messages over the weekend and things of that sort. So I do have to prioritize those when those come in, but boundaries that I've set to prevent those text messages is, making sure that ahead of the time I've delegated the job, I've explained it thoroughly, and I've opened the door for questions while I'm still on the clock. So I'm in the office until Friday at 7 p.m. and if you need any help with this is when I will be able to help you with this. So I guess for myself, it's knowing that when you run a business, there's no one to turn to but you. So you are going to have those need to be addressed texts or emails over the weekend, but doing what you can during your designated work hours during the week to prevent things like that from happening, setting yourself up for, I guess, going the extra mile during the work week to prevent it's going into your non-work week, I guess. So there's things that I definitely will keep in place or keep in mind while I'm prepping going into time off, to try to guarantee that I at least have a few hours over the weekend on 2 days to make sure that I'm as clear-minded as I can be.
I think there's a great lesson in that. I always sort of joke that an out of office reply on my email is like a magnet for people to questions, comments, and concerns. But there's something really powerful about inviting those in a really intentional way before you're out and creating the space for employees and volunteers to think through what their questions might be and address them while you're there. I think an awesome lesson in that for anyone who struggles with similar things. More generally on leadership, Megan, before we dive into another segment here, what leadership traits would you say you've had to develop over time in your role? And maybe what are you still working to develop as a leader?
Yeah, so I think something that I've learned over time that has just been super successful is leading by example. And that's something that I'm constantly using, um, whether it's with my employees, in the classroom, when I'm teaching, anything, there's nothing that I'm going to say no to, probably. And especially if I'm going to have a staff member or a volunteer do this task, it's nothing that I wouldn't do myself. So whether that's, if I, in a kid setting, I'm telling the kids, let's lead by example by, if you want to have a good show, let's open our scripts backstage and make sure that we're ready to work. If we're in an employee setting, let's lead by example in the sense of, I'm here for 2 hours. These are the tasks that I'm giving. If I work hard, maybe the people around me will do the same and we'll support each other. So there's definitely, I've just had huge success in personal and business life with leading by example. Then I think in terms of learning is reminding myself that there's always something to learn. So, especially being in a job for 20 plus years, it's easy to get comfortable or into a routine. But as the years go on, things are constantly changing, and reminding myself that something that worked 5 years ago, something that worked 10 years ago might not work as well now today, and being open to that adjustment and change as you run a business that's been in business for as long as, Fair Lady Productions has.
Mm. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Kidz Kabaret. It seems like every time we talk, there's something new that you're working on, something unexpected too. I remember when you opened the cafe, and my first thought was a cafe, but coming to the theater and seeing that integrated into the Showtime experience was just the coolest thing, and it made so much sense. And so I love that. Always considering what else you might incorporate or think differently about. We've nodded a couple of times to sort of the similarities or differences between a nonprofit kids theater environment and the corporate world, but I want to dig into that for a second here. Megan, imagine if a leader from a corporate environment shadowed you for a week. What do you think would surprise them, and what do you think they might learn?
Yeah, so I think when you get these big titles, whether it's executive director, operations manager, you're thinking, okay, that operations manager is office hours, probably working the job more on a hands-off position, delegating, but not living those jobs. And I think what would surprise a corporate leader is all of the jobs that are offered at Kidz Kabaret that we hire employees to do are jobs that I've done myself or have continued to do myself. A fun example is as you mentioned, we did open a cafe that we run and operate. Many Kidz Kabaret students will get their first job at King's Cafe operating food service for our shows. And in the summer, I take on the position of lunch ladies. So in the summer, I have college students that come back to direct our summer camps, and I go into the cafe and run our lunch and snack service throughout the summer. Reason why I do that is it's a need and something that needs to be filled, but more importantly, I'm in charge of running that cafe. I order the stock, the inventory. I'm in charge of the logistics of how food service should work when we're running it, and something that I genuinely believe I can only learn those skills by doing the job. So taking 7 weeks in the summer to run that position during the day that I would usually spend doing office related job. It adds a variety to my job, but it also prepares me and helps me better train our employees, and I guess make sure that the logistics of the business are run in how you would run food service is done correctly, because I've actually ran it and done it myself. So versus watching or standing back and waiting to get the hey, something's not working here, I try to be proactive and jump in and see what can I do in these different jobs and roles to be successful. I guess even something in this case of running rentals, house managers. So I'm the person that's going to set up everything for this rental. I've booked it, I've made the contract, we've organized the event together, and now I'm going to pass this off to a house manager who's going to be there on the day of event to run it. But I have my hands in every aspect of the business, and not just from an overseer position, but my hands are literally in those jobs, making sure that they're done, the way that they should be.
Something. Oh, sorry, Erin.
I have a feeling we were going to say something similar, so please jump in.
I was just thinking, it just makes me think about, in the corporate world, a lot of times you will get people that have gotten into like a senior leadership position that haven't necessarily done all the functions that sit underneath them. And I'm not sure it would ever occur to them to take on the role themselves for a period of time to better understand the challenges and complexities of the work that they're asking their teams to do. And I think it's a really interesting concept to better understand your team dynamics and the pressures that they're facing and the realities of trying to get done what you're asking them to do as the functional head. If you haven't been in their shoes, I mean, obviously you rely on people telling you, but there's no better way to understand the true dynamics of a role than to actually sit in it yourself. And I can't imagine, I don't know about you, Erin, but I just can't imagine a senior leader in the corporate world just taking some time to really sit in the shoes of the people they make decisions for.
Yeah, and there's so much power in that discovery. I remember stepping in to execute an offer for a team member in a previous position, and it was the first time I'd interacted with the offer workflow at that organization. And I remember uncovering a really silly step that you basically had to it was additional clicks for no added value. And I remember asking them about it, and they were like, yeah, it's a really irritating part of the process that doesn't have value. And so it was one of those sort of like, couldn't see the forest for the trees. And when you're in the role and you've just been dealing with something for as long as you have, sometimes you almost forget that it's there. Yeah. And so the new eyes can a lot of times uncover things that others might not. And so I think there's a lot to be learned from that habit. Diving into a couple more points about what leaders can maybe learn from Kidz Kabaret. We talked earlier, Megan, about the loyal following, and it sounds like there's an incredible level of loyalty in the students that have come up through the programs and with the community at large. And you've done this without a large ad budget, which is incredible. Share with us what strategies have helped you bring this to life.
Yeah, so we are so lucky to have so many wonderful children that really do the advertising for us. So, I mean, these kids, they go to school, they tell their friends, I'm in a show, it's at Kidz Kabaret, you've got to join it. And genuinely, that is our advertising budget. Word of mouth. Our product speaks for itself. So the best thing that we do is any school, any other nonprofit, usually, every season we have about 10 to 15 nonprofits or schools that will reach out to us doing a daddy-daughter dance or a fundraiser, and they ask for donations. And what we will donate to them are show tickets to come see our shows. So, this is a raffle prize for 4 tickets to see our show, knowing that the product will speak for itself. So, something that we do, I guess, we usually every show might have a handful of open seats. So why not fill those seats with potential customers, knowing that hopefully they're going to enjoy it and then sign their kid up or go tell somebody you got to go see one of these shows at Kidz Kabaret. So taking those opportunities, knowing that you don't have a huge budget, something that isn't going to cost you anything like open seats in a show, you might as well fill those. And going that route, I guess, has been very successful for us.
Excellent product, bringing people close to the experience. And I'm smiling as you said word of mouth. I've experienced that myself when I was up in Chicago for some business lunches a few weeks ago. I was having lunch with an old colleague, and she was sharing just a litany of activities that her kids are enrolled in. And she mentioned sports and some extracurriculars, but then she doubled down and said, and my son is in this kids theater program that he just loves, and it's sort of the center of his excitement right now. It's called Kidz Kabaret. And I was like, yeah, I happen to be familiar with that organization. So it really does make a big impact, and I think stands out against other similar experiences for kids. Last sort of wrap-up question on your leadership, Megan. How do you continually connect people with your mission at Kidz Kabaret, and why is it important to do that?
Yeah, so I think it's fun in a way, but every 3 months there's a showcase on stage, 20 different opportunities to see it, of what your hard work has done. So whether that's myself, I get to see it myself, or volunteers that have been a part of it and have donated their time to helping us. Literally center stage, you get to see all of your hard work and effort with every single kid that participates. I mean, every kid that gets up on stage, sings their song, does their thing, that's a home run for us. So I'm just lucky that I get to do it 20 different times every 3 months with over 350 kids. And you get to see that direct result. And it is funny to think about that as like, you get to showcase it. But I mean, it is every 3 months. This is what I've worked hard for this month. This is what I've dedicated those extra hours to. And always that, after you do that show, it's that same night and 4 or 5 registrations roll in from kids that just got to see their show. So that is a huge pat on the back of, okay, well, obviously the kid enjoyed themselves and the parent enjoyed the product. And now those registrations are coming in from that show. So seeing those direct results, and, every season you'll get a handful of really kind emails from our parents just thanking us, and those go such a long way too as well. So and anytime we get those, I send them off to anyone that had anything to do with the show. So if we had a director that volunteered their time to help us with the rehearsals and we get a nice compliment, I'll forward that to them, thanking them for their time and effort, and like, look how much it does make a difference. But when it comes to kids, and especially at this age that they're in and growing confidence, what our business does, the product, there it is, it speaks. There's the confidence build. There's the kid doing their in 3rd grade, but this is their 19th show. I mean, it's the product and the joy that the kids bring is the best reward for your hard work.
And I love that you share the testimonials and the thank yous that you receive with your staff. I think, when leaders struggle to drive engagement in their teams, drive excitement in their teams, maybe get frustrated when they can't always recognize with bonuses or other material rewards. Sometimes it really is that simple, is sharing or illustrating the impact that you're having on your customers, on your stakeholders, on your community. So I love that. think it's a great takeaway for listeners. We've talked about connecting people back with the mission. I think there's so much for people to take away from the illustration of impact for their teams, and that it doesn't always have to be material reward to recognize contributions. When you think about legacy, Megan, both for the business and for you, what does that mean to you in your role?
Yeah, so starting with Kidz Kabaret in a position that of being a kid. So I started at Kidz Kabaret, elementary school, wanting to perform, wanting to be center stage, looking for those opportunities, getting to be a part of that part of the business to now fast forward 25 years later and now running the business. That to me is just such a huge legacy thing that I can put in place of, I was with this business from the start. I was just like you guys. I used to be a Kidz Kabaret kid. That's what I'm constantly telling my students. I was a Kidz Kabaret kid. I was just like you. And I think setting that example for them, I mean, so many kids are like, yeah, I just want to work at Kidz Kabaret when I get older. And I think that for me is what makes my legacy a part of Kidz Kabaret so cool, is that just like all of these kids, I was a Kidz Kabaret kid myself. And if I continue with the business like I plan to, in 10, 20 years, now maybe I'm in charge of the business and in a higher position. Having that and looking back to be able to say, this all started and I was just like you, I think is really special.
I couldn't agree more. And I think about, you carry yourself with such presence, and you, I think, just command with such ease that people are in awe of that. But it started by working on those skills as a child and building your self-confidence and building your vocal skills and communication skills. And I think it's so cool for young kids to see the connection between maybe where they're starting and where they could end when they put the work in and enjoy themselves along the way. And so I love that. Let's end with one piece of advice. It's Women's History Month. We're doing that up big at Stratavis. And so I would love if you would share, Megan, one thing with a young woman who might be aspiring to leadership in her career. What would your single piece of advice be?
Keep going, I guess, never say no and keep going. So I think so many different obstacles come with careers and growing. You sometimes have uncertainties, but try it, see how it goes, and keep pushing forward. So definitely there's days, just like in any job, where it's hard to persevere, but always putting yourself out there and not turning away from any opportunity is how you grow. And so I guess don't be afraid to grow.
I love that. I love that. Keep going. Don't say no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good motto. And I think one that I've tried to carry on. I had a really good example in my mother, who has a very strong work ethic, and the motto was always say yes, figure it out later. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I've taken that throughout my career journey for sure. So I definitely agree. Keep going. Don't say no.
And I'm not surprised that's your advice. I think, Megan, you're probably the hardest worker I have ever met. And I think that with anything in front of you, you'll just figure it out if you don't know how to do it already. And I think that's an amazing piece of advice and North Star for other women who might be at the start of their journey. So this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, for letting us pick your brain, dive into your journey as a leader, and really appreciate all of your time this morning.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.